If you're planning to move to Japan long term, what job opportunities are available is probably one of your biggest concerns. Here are some things you should consider when job hunting in Japan. Check out the top jobs in Japan for foreigners apart from teaching English, and things to look for when you're looking for a job. Keep in mind that these examples are just general guidelines, and you should always check job descriptions for more information. Alright, the first factor that you should consider is the working hours. You may have heard that Japanese companies have very long working hours, and overtime hours often go unpaid. I had a look online and found some stats that 19.6% of Japanese male employees work 60 hours overtime a month. And for Japanese female employees, 16.7% of them log 21 to 40 hours of overtime every single month. Working hours can be so severe in Japan that employees take their own lives. There's even a term for it in Japanese. It's called karoshi, which means death from overwork. Thankfully, this toxic work culture is changing after several cases that gained nationwide attention, and more Japanese companies are putting certain systems and practices in place to avoid karoshi. Also, you can consider working for foreign companies and startups that usually have more lax work environments and will pay for any overtime work. Make sure to hash out these details before signing with any company. Alright, another factor that you should consider is the size of the company. You can check LinkedIn or even the company's official website to find information of how many employees work there. When job hunting in Japan, the size of the company could affect your decision. If you prefer smaller, more intimate companies, consider working for a school, store, restaurant, or startup. If you don't mind working for a large corporation, you'll have a lot more options, both foreign and Japanese. Of course, another factor we need to think about is the salary. This is probably one of the biggest factors when it comes to job hunting. Here are some stats of the average nationwide annual salary. For people in their 20s, 3.45 million yen per year. For people in their 30s, 4.42 million, and for people in their 40s, 5 million yen. Careers in consulting, audit, or fields that require special skill usually have the highest salaries. You can check out this infographic right over here about the average salaries in Japan. Another factor in your salary is how long you work in a company. Most companies in Japan value loyalty. The longer you work in a company, the more you get paid regardless of your contribution. The hierarchy is also embedded in many traditional Japanese companies. Alright, another factor is your coworkers. Your coworkers and colleagues can make or break the job. If you don't speak Japanese and work in a Japanese company where the majority of the employees are Japanese, it might be difficult for you to communicate and get close to your coworkers. If you can't speak Japanese but hope to form close relationships with your coworkers, consider working in an international company, a startup, or a business in the service industry. Now let's think about the job itself. Everybody wants a job that they like. If you're passionate and have an experience in a certain field, start by looking for jobs in these industries. Try to have an open mind because it might be difficult to get your dream job. Another thing to consider is the language. Since you're up to this part of the video, you probably know by now that Japanese fluency is pretty important when it comes to job hunting in Japan. Not being able to speak Japanese will limit your options, as many will require an N1 or N2 certificate from the Japanese Language Proficiency Test, which is also known as JLPT, and those are the two top levels. We would recommend learning some Japanese, or you can look into international companies that may not require Japanese language skills. You can check out this video right over here about traits of people that will be happy living in Japan. Alright, now that we've covered all these different factors, let's take a look at the top jobs in Japan for foreigners. There's IT companies. If you have experience in IT like programming and engineering, there are a lot of opportunities for you in Japan. In fact, it is one of the industries that are actively seeking foreign workers. In many cases, even if you don't speak Japanese, you can get hired in many different companies in Japan. Many foreigners working in Japan, especially in Tokyo, are in the IT industry. Then there's nursing care. The Ministry of Health and Welfare of Japan estimates that there will be a shortage of 380,000 nursing care personnel by 2025. Even now, there's a serious shortage of personnel in the nursing care industry. Because of the shortage, it is now easier for people to find a job in this field. And of course, we've got English teacher. English teaching job in Japan is probably one of the top jobs for foreigners in Japan. There are lots of English teaching jobs in Japan, and many foreigners you meet here will have worked as English teachers just to get their foot in the door. But many schools will require at least a bachelor's degree if you want to get an English teaching job in Japan. So when you're looking for a job here in Japan, just bear in mind that there will be a lot of competition for these jobs in bigger cities. If English is not your strong suit, you can consider teaching other things as well. There may be fewer options, but there will also be less competition. Then there's international companies. If you want to work for a big international company, there are many companies in consulting, banking, finance, marketing, PR, design, and similar fields. Most of these companies are in Tokyo. These positions are usually a little harder to get into and are quite competitive. A lot of the people that's working in international companies are expats that move from overseas headquarters to the Japanese branch. In this case, they're paid well and their housing is provided. If you're already working at a company that has a branch in Japan, then you can look into this option. And then we've got Japanese companies. If you're planning to work in a Japanese company, then you have more flexibility. Just have to keep in mind that Japanese language is likely a requirement. The working environment might also be different from what you're used to in other countries, like what I was mentioning earlier. When job hunting in Japan, you can check out Gaijin Pot, Daijob, or Facebook groups to find out more about different work opportunities. Just keep in mind that the success rate is quite low searching on these platforms. You can also try looking on LinkedIn or sign up to a recruitment company. Most headquarters of big Japanese companies are in big cities, but there are many smaller companies all over the country. There are also many factories, like the Toyota factories, that welcome foreign workers, and they're situated in different parts of Japan. Alright, something else you can look into are startups. When looking for a job in Japan, you'll probably come across startups. There's a booming number of startups run by both foreigners and Japanese. Most startups are within the tech industry, but there are also a few in others. If you like working in a small team and having your voice heard, then working in a startup might be a good option for you. Unfortunately, startups probably won't be able to give a long-term visa. Startups also tend to have more uncertainties because of the nature of the company, but also more flexibility. Then there's also the service industry. Japanese people love food. As a result, Japan is full of restaurants that serve delicious food from all over the world. The industry is also known for its aggressive recruitment of foreign talent because of the chronic manpower shortage. Even if you're not confident in Japanese, you can work at a restaurant as servers or cooks depending on your work experience. Then we've got the travel industry. The Japanese travel industry is booming. There are countless tour companies and more tour guides around the country. Since the travel industry is targeted towards foreigners and tourists, Japanese language is usually not as big of a requirement. If you can speak different languages, are social and good at content creation, then maybe you can look into working in the travel industry. Then there's also freelancing. If you have a technical skill like translation, photography, videography, marketing, graphic design, and so on, then you can look into freelancing. But just keep in mind that freelancing is a difficult visa status to obtain, and jobs and projects can be quite unstable. Moving to Japan and choosing the city to live in Japan can be a difficult task, but with the right resources and tools, you won't have to stress. What do you think about these jobs for foreigners in Japan? Apart from getting an English teaching job in Japan, hope you've found some other options for you to check out. If you have any questions or want to get in touch, feel free to DM us on Instagram or message us on Facebook Messenger. We'd love to talk to you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell notification. We've got more videos about Japan travel, moving to Japan, living in Japan, Japanese culture, and so much more, so make sure to stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.